Hello, you're watching Coronavirus Catch Up. I'm Jordan Kenny. Welcome to the programme. We're live tonight on the BBC News NI website and Facebook page and on the BBC iPlayer for the next 25 minutes or so. Thanks for tuning in, however you're joining us. Well, we're out and about and the sun is shining right in my eyes, so it's fantastic. And we're here in Horatio Todd's on the outskirts of Belfast, which is getting ready to open its doors to customers tomorrow. And that'll be the first time in 2021, like so many other businesses, that it's been able to do that. But as you'll know, although restrictions are easing, it doesn't mean that you can head indoors just yet. The regulations mean that anyone who's heading out for a drink or for a meal will have to be seated outside. So we've got our coats on, the heat lamps are going, we're outside, and for the first time ever on Coronavirus Catch Up, my guest is joining me live in the flesh. It's Richard Morgan, our business reporter.
Hi,
Richard,
Jordan.
how you doing?
Good to
Richard,
see you.
Good to finally see you in person. Like I said, how's things with you?
Good, yes. It's been a busy couple of weeks since the easing of restrictions was announced by the executive. Businesses have been getting ready for what is a significant day tomorrow, and as we'll get into shortly, it hasn't been all smooth sailing for every business, especially in the hospitality sector, but no doubt it is a better day tomorrow, and things are starting to feel like we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, well, Richard, before we do get into everything tonight, you've been out and about this week. I've been listening to you on Good Morning Ulster. You've been everywhere, all over the show. You've been speaking to lots of business owners who are preparing to reopen. Like you said, tomorrow's a big day. What have they been telling you?
Oh, well, they've been telling us essentially they're delighted to get reopened. Yeah. Some of the businesses I've been speaking to over the last week are, for the very first time since last March, getting some financial support for the executive, because in the past different criteria meant that they were not eligible. And you may wonder, well, why are they getting grants now? Well, it's because they have to catch up on the debts that they have accrued over the last 12 months. But speaking to all businesses, they say grants don't cover anything. It's not grants that we want, it's customers that we want. It's people through our doors spending their money. That is why we started a business, and we love to see people. And I get the sense that there's a lot of excitement, anticipation, but also a bit of nervousness, because nobody knows what to expect tomorrow.
I know. Well, we'll get on to the nervousness just in a minute or two. But although we're here in a beer garden tonight, it's not just hospitality businesses that are preparing to roll up their shutters. Tomorrow sees the reopening of all non-essential retail, along with the opening of caravan sites and self-contained tourism accommodation. That's good news for those of you looking to get away this weekend for the bank holiday, as you can get to your caravan, you can get out to the shops. But obviously, one of the big ones, the reopening of unlicensed and licensed premises outdoors. Gyms can reopen for individual training, and now 15 people can meet in a private garden. And finally, for those of you who like a late night snack, takeaways can now be served after 11 p.m, and off licenses can serve after 8 p.m. Now, you've been sending your questions in to us on Coronavirus Catch Up this week, and we're going to be answering them with Richard tonight. But if you're watching on Facebook, feel free to get involved in the comments section. We'll be keeping an eye on that. If you have any thoughts or questions about what's being discussed, leave them in there, and we'll try our best to get to them before we're off air tonight. But Richard, like we've been saying, it's obviously a good day for a lot of people tomorrow as we start to open up a bit more. But for some people, their favourite bar or restaurant might not actually be reopening as planned. What's been going on there?
Yeah, so this has really been rumbling on here and there for about a week now, but the last couple of days this really has ramped up, and a lot of businesses have been preparing for that outdoor trading, outdoor dining, outdoor drinking in a beer garden. But they have found that environmental health officers from city councils, district councils, have been doing inspections just to make sure businesses are COVID compliant. And essentially what's happened is that regulations that the executive office say were in place last July, they're being enforced by councils, and that it comes down to essentially roofs and walls and what constitutes an outdoor space and an indoor space. And essentially the executive office says it's a rule of thumb. This comes down to legislation from 2007 to do with smoking areas. There needs to be 50% of the space has to be open to allow the flow of air, to allow ventilation. And businesses have been told that they either have to remove an awning or the overhead part that they may have installed at great cost for some businesses in order to be able to stay open, or to stay open and be COVID compliant. Now, hospitality chiefs have said there hasn't been enough engagement from the executive office, which has been disputed by officials. They're saying, look, this has been in place since July. Councils are just enforcing the regulations that are in place. There are a lot of unhappy people tonight in particular saying that we can't open our business fully, or we just can't open at all.
And you know, tonight the weather's obviously fantastic, but this does mean you're going to be very open to the elements whenever you go out for a drink or a meal.
Yeah, and we haven't been as lucky this time round as we were last year in that first lockdown when the weather was stunning. It's been changeable at the minute, and there is we're in the sun, but there is a bit of a chill. In an hour's time you are going to need a jacket. If it rains in another hour's time, you're going to need an umbrella.
Catch your death out here with just your shirt on. Well,
so yeah, it is. Look, it is. It's going to have to be very much pack for the elements, pack for the Northern Irish weather, because who knows what to expect over the coming days.
Definitely. Well, understandably, Richard, as we come out of lockdown, some people are going to be apprehensive about these restrictions easing. Like we were saying, we've all been sitting in the house for months on end. What measures are going to be in place in venues? We're outside, but what else?
Well, I don't think you're going to see anything majorly different that when you ventured out last time or when we had previous easings. So hospitality venues, they must take contact details for track and trace purposes. That's in case there is an outbreak or a case detected or traced back, so people can be contacted. We are also going to have that rule of 6 people from 2 households at a table, which we did have last time round as well. So as you said, Jordan, we can't sit at the same table now, but after midnight we would be able to, but we couldn't have someone from a 3rd household at our table, so those restrictions are in place. You probably find face coverings will still have to be worn when you're going inside a venue. To either pay, one person is allowed to go in and do that, or to use the bathroom facilities, you'll have to wear a face covering while passing through the premises. And then, of course, you will have the social distancing that is in place, and part of those inspections by council officers over the last few days, we understand, has also been making sure that tables are spaced enough apart so that when you're with your party, the next party to you isn't going to be too close.
Well, I see we're getting some questions in on Facebook there about travel. We're going to be coming to that just shortly. But Richard, that is all the measures that are going to be in place in venues. But for us as customers, what are we going to be expected to do? Face masks, face shields, all the rest of it?
Yeah, face coverings if you're going indoors, moving through the venue, as many places did have in place last time round. I think also we'll just be told to, be aware of our surroundings and to respect the rules that are both in place in law through the regulations, but also by whatever venue you're in, because you may find some venues have different COVID measures in place. For example, you may find some have the QR codes on the menus of the tables and they ask you to order that way, or other places the people will come down for table service, which still remains in place. It is worth saying one change you'll see is that you don't actually have to eat when you visit a venue this time,
so
whereas last time you did have to have what was defined as a substantial meal in order to have drinks.
And I see Kathleen on Facebook is asking when we'll be able to meet up to 15 people outdoors. That's tomorrow, Kathleen, and from 3 households. But moving away from, restrictions for a minute, let's talk about travel. There's people on Facebook wanting to know about that, and we've had so many questions in. Such a big topic, Richard. We've talked about it so many times on this programme. People are crying out for dates for when they can start hopping on flights again. We'll come to international travel in just a minute, but firstly, travel within the UK. Because there's so many questions on this, let's break it down. First up is Lizzie. She's asking, when will we be able to travel to other parts of the UK? So to be clear, Richard, travel from Northern Ireland to other parts of the UK isn't totally banned. There are some instances in which you can travel to Great Britain.
Yes, so there isn't a blanket ban at the minute. There is no you cannot leave Northern Ireland or you cannot enter Northern Ireland unless you're coming for certain things. So there's a list of reasons why you can leave and arrive into Northern Ireland. This includes returning home if you've been away from your permanent place of residence. If you're working, so you can't work from home, you need to come back for maybe an essential business. Accessing health and social care services or childcare services, if you're fulfilling a caring responsibility, if you're coming home to look after a parent or a grandparent, if you're fulfilling a legal obligation, so if you've been summoned to court, and then if you're attending a funeral of a member of your household or close family member within the restrictions that then are imposed on funeral services at the moment. So no, it isn't completely banned, but there is a stipulation that if you're staying for over 24 hours, you do have to self-isolate for 10 days. We don't know when this will change, when that common travel area will open up and we can start getting on flights or ferries across to Great Britain. But Arlene Foster, she has asked the Health Minister Robin Swan about this, so you may find this forms part of the review being held in May.
So if your reason for travel falls into one of those categories, you can make the journey then.
Yes.
And just to go back over one thing you did say, because we've had a lot of people getting in touch about that 10 days of isolation. So you mentioned there what Arlene Foster had said. Emily's in touch, she's asking about it. So just to clarify, Richard, it's advice that we have to isolate when we come back.
Well, if you're staying for longer than 24 hours, it's within the regulations that you have to isolate for 10 days, and that's just to stop any infection or variant being brought into Northern Ireland from elsewhere. Now, we don't know when that is going to change. We have had instances now, or the change in England and Wales, that you can travel freely around and between both countries, but no indication yet as to when we're going to see changes here in Northern Ireland.
And although, you know, there's lots of people getting in touch with us who want to be, you know, travelling, I would say a lot of travel businesses and homeowners, holiday homeowners, they'll be, you know, they can take bookings again from tomorrow, but they'll be looking to hear when these restrictions ease as well, coming into the summer months, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so self-contained accommodation, that resumes tomorrow, and that's just with your own household. So you can go with your partner or your family to, say, if you have a caravan or a holiday home in Northern Ireland, you are able to do that. But in terms of when travel resumes, that's a bit later in the executive's plan. It's step-by-step recovery. They will be crying out to know when they can get going, and they'll also be wanting to know when this holiday at home voucher and scheme will be launched, because that's really being seen as a way to stimulate that part of the economy, to encourage spending. But as we sit here tonight, we just don't have a date. And just on the self-isolation guidance, I should say there are some exemptions for certain sectors. That includes aircrew, essential infrastructure workers, and elite sports people, and also those who would be deemed essential working on film and television production.
Well, to go back to the holiday homes, Richard, Andy is in touch. He's asking about staying away in the Republic of Ireland. So where are we at when it comes to crossing the border for leisure reasons?
Well, a number of weeks ago, when we talked about this on Coronavirus Catch-Up, the Health Minister, Robin Swan, he had sort of cast a bit of doubt over international travel, but he has also said about the Republic looking uncertain, just given the gaps in the vaccination programme between how Northern Ireland was performing and how the Republic was performing. Now, tonight in the Republic, the Taoiseach has announced that May 10th is the date that will allow travel within the Republic, so people can travel out of their county, you know, move around a bit more freely. You wonder if now that that date has been announced, will the executive be thinking, well, where does that leave us, especially given at the minute tomorrow we're going to have shops open in Northern Ireland but not in the Republic, and you have those cross-border shopping destinations like Newry. So again, you wonder if part of this review, will we be given some sort of date to be able to travel freely around the island?
Well, what about people living in those areas, Richard? Because obviously tomorrow our shops reopen in Northern Ireland, our outdoor hospitality venues. Is there any you know, clarity about people in those areas moving between the two places?
Well,
in
terms of the advice and the regulations in the Republic at the minute, people can travel up to a certain amount of kilometres, but inter-county travel still isn't allowed. However, it's very hard for shopping destinations to regulate and impose that. But my understanding is a number of these cities and towns in those areas are not actively advertising or encouraging people from the Republic to come and shop, but at the same time, they can't just say, stay away.
Yeah. Right. Finally, on travel, Richard, let's talk international travel. Molly's been in touch about this. She's wanting to know just when we will have more clarity on international travel, so when we can expect to hear a bit more. I know other parts of the UK have indicative dates that they're working towards for this, but where are we at? Have we got the same?
We don't at the minute. We have the travel review that has taken place in England, the government looking at when international travel could return, but also how it will return. And what we do know is that there will be this traffic light system in place, and basically the government will determine which countries will be classed as red, amber and green. Even green countries, you will still have to test while going out to those countries and take a coronavirus test upon your return, which obviously adds an expense for people who are travelling. So it will be interesting to see where that goes, but then also the return of possible travel corridors that we did have last August time. People were able to nip away and come back, but as we knew, that advice changed too, and people were in a last dash home. So the executive very few international flights, if any, operating in and out of Northern Ireland at the minute. The executive still to take a decision on that. But again, you may find that when we get to this date in May for this review, that we may get some indication as to when they're thinking, or they will say international travel will not return before this date, like we did have in England.
Okay, well, something to keep an eye and ear out for. Let's go back to restrictions easing. Another place reopening tomorrow for the first time this year, like it or loathe it, is the gym. Richard, what rules do we need to be aware of if we are planning to, get our trainers and our workout gear back on again tomorrow?
Yeah, and
you looking forward to that? Are you going to be going to the gym tomorrow?
I'm not going to the gym tomorrow, but I will be returning to the gym next week, because it's been too long, I think, for all of us, and it'll be nice to get a bit of exercise, just for our physical health, but also for our mental health. And my gym did email me this week to say we are back from 6 a.m. So,
I don't even know if I'll remember how to use the equipment.
Well,
I'll be walking around like a lost sheep.
Starting from scratch. But so look, gym's returning for individual training only, so you're not going to be able to go back to your spin or your Zumba class. That's another few weeks away at least. So you will be going back to the gym. I was listening to a gym owner this morning, and you'll know yourself, many gyms either use a keypad to get in, or you're scanned in using a card or whatnot. They say that will be their track and trace system, because they'll know what time you entered the gym, and in some places what time you left. But it will be individual training, no classes. You'll probably find you'll be wearing a face covering while you are working out, and you'll know as well, in the past gyms, most had the sanitizer and the blue roll anyway. People were supposed to wipe down their equipment after use. I'm not sure everyone did, from being in gyms myself and seeing that, but I think gyms will be more vigilant on that, because if you are touching an object for a long time, it is that, and someone else is picking it up after you, you'll want to make sure it's well sanitized.
And I'm sure you're going to be gutted that you're not going to get back to Zumba,
Oh, I know, it'll be another while.
Well, Richard, throughout this whole pandemic, we've been, given so many new terms, so many new things that we have to learn if we want to keep up with what's going on. A new one that we've been hearing about recently is COVID marshals. Who are the COVID marshals, and what are they going to be doing?
So the COVID marshals, they are overseen by local councils who were awarded money from the Department for Communities to assist with getting them onto the streets of town and city centres. They have no specific powers, so they won't be going around fining people or doing anything like that, but they will be there in an advisory role, I guess, where they will be reminding people that it's mandatory to wear face coverings in retail premises. They may be managing queues, because we just don't know what to expect tomorrow. Will there be queues outside a lot of the shops, that pent up demand, people wanting to splash the cash a bit, and they will just be reminding people of the rules. But from speaking to retailers this week and retail organisations, they have really felt that has been lacking in the previous easing of restrictions when shops have been opened during the pandemic, and that they would like to see a more visible presence of COVID marshals in the coming weeks, especially given we have been in this lockdown for so long. They may find that the high streets are quite busy.
Well, just looking at our Facebook questions, Megan is writing into us. She said she would like more clarification on weddings. What can you tell us about weddings, Richard?
Yeah, okay, so this is a tricky one, because we did think we were going to get news on weddings during the last easement announcements, but that didn't come. We have an indicative date of May 24th for the resumption of wedding receptions, so people being able to have a post-wedding meal, do all the things you would expect when you attend a wedding. There has been some frustration from some venues that outdoor hospitality is reopening tomorrow, but they can't offer outdoor dining for wedding parties that may want to book. So receptions still not allowed, but wedding ceremonies, they can take place, and that is based on numbers based on restrictions and risk assessment at a venue.
And what about the curfew, Richard? So that's something that we talked about a bit earlier, but just to go over that again, that's something that we did see before, but we're not going to see this time.
No, it's gone tomorrow. That's it. So so the off license and off sales, they can sell alcohol after 8 o'clock in the evening. That's from tomorrow. At the minute, they can't do that. Takeaways, they are currently limited to 11 in the evening, so you can't order a delivery or go for a takeout after 11. That changes tomorrow again. And in terms of hospitality, we did have restrictions, curfew, early close, whatever you want to call it. That is also going from tomorrow, so they can stay open to their normal time within the license that they have.
How much of a benefit is it going to be to those businesses that they're now able to stay open a bit later, especially with, outdoor hospitality reopening? Are they going to see a benefit from that?
Well, I suppose it's a couple of extra hours trading, so there'll be a benefit of that if people are spending their money for off sales. They can stay open a couple of hours later. For hospitality venues, they can do the same. And then for takeaways, I do know at the time when this curfew was imposed that the Takeaway Association for Northern Ireland was saying it had concerns not only for its members in terms of the money that they were losing by having to close at 11, but for people who maybe don't work the 9 to 5, who work overnight, who work through the night, who couldn't get a takeout or depending on their working patterns. So I think it'll be of benefit to a lot of businesses out there that this restriction has been removed.
Well, before we go, Richard, we have one final question for this week. Obviously, outdoor hospitality is opening tomorrow, as we've been talking about tonight. But what about those venues that don't have, the luxury of a beer garden like we're sitting in tonight, or they don't have access to, streets where they can put seating out? Some are able to use pavements, like I was saying, but when can we expect these indoor venues to open, or the term wet pubs, we can use that we learned last year? When will they reopen?
Well, that indicative date is May 24th.
Yeah.
That is when the expectation is that we can go inside to have a meal, we can go inside to have a drink, and those restrictions are loosened further. Now, speaking to the owner of where we are today, he said to me, obviously we have this indicative date of May 24th. We know from the past indicative dates have slipped or changed, but he said he would like to see indoor dining a little bit earlier, because that would give the staff time to adjust to that change in pace, that change in business model, but it would also just open up the business a bit more, allow them to take a bit more money. But unless at this review that the executive is holding on, is it May 13th? At the minute, it's May 24th for the reopening, unless it's brought forward.
So just waiting to find out again. Well, we had more good news earlier from the Department of Health that there was no new coronavirus deaths today, but that is all we have time for tonight here in Horatio Todd's in Belfast. I mean, Richard, I don't know about you, but I've enjoyed sitting out here in the sun, although I think when I get home, I'm probably going to be sunburned.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
For so long, the sun has been coming and going, so apologies if that's been, messing up the camera or whatever. But thanks for joining us. This time tomorrow night, Horatio Todd's is going to be buzzing with people. It'll be full. People excited to be out of the house, out of their jammies. They're going to change out of their clothes into normal clothes for the first time in a while. Richard, thanks for braving the elements and sitting here with us, putting yourself at risk of sunburn too.
Good to see you.
Lots of you were in touch with us this week to send in your questions. Apologies if we didn't get to your one, but if you do have a question that hasn't been answered, feel free to send it in to us. You can email it to us using bbcnewsni@bbc.co.uk, putting coronavirus catch-up in the subject. Don't forget you can keep up to date with all the latest developments on the pandemic on the BBC News NI website, which you'll find at bbc.co.uk/newsni. And we're on social media as well. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Twitter. Just type in BBC News NI when you're on there, and you should find us. That's it from us for this week. We'll be back again with another coronavirus catch-up again next Thursday. So if you need something to watch while you're maybe a bit hungover from being out at the outdoor pubs, feel free to tune in. I will see you then. Stay safe.